Want to be the next IAS topper? Join Shankar IAS Academy.
I'm a bit amused actually. Mr. Dinesh has been hounding me all day. I had not actually intended to be here. I had back-to-back meetings. My fellow minister, I'm told, already appeared. And then he said, no, but just come and, just say hello and go. And here I am. And then he says, no, come and speak. But anyway, I'm very grateful for the chance to speak, for the invitation to see all of you. The press has a very important role in democracy, at least in design by design. But what has happened in the last few years, maybe it was always the case to some extent, but it has accelerated greatly in the last few years. The press that was supposed to be speaking truth to power, the press that was supposed to be asking difficult questions, at least at the national level, has kind of come down, found a new low, just when we think it can't go lower. Not only do they not ask questions, not only do they not speak truth to power, not only do they become mouthpieces of those in power, they become broadcasters of fake news or agitational kind of demagogic propaganda. So at some level overall, I would say it's very depressing for the state of democracy. On the other hand, if you take Tamil Nadu, and I say this apart from all politics, we find the press still has some kind of spine. They still question politicians, they still cast aspersions, they still shine the spotlight when things don't seem to be at least 100% clear. Sometimes it takes, sometimes there's traction, sometimes there's not. But there is some semblance of an independent press. And that was true even in the old regime. I'm not talking about politics. So recently I was on a panel with some senior journalists and some professors from Paris, from Julia Cage, from Sciences Po, Siddharth Varadarajan, Enram, others. And we tried to think about why is that so? How is it that in some parts of the country there is still room for an independent press and some parts of the country there is not? And I think we collectively came to the conclusion that it has to do a lot with the economics of the business of journalism or the press or YouTube channels. And what makes Tamil Nadu a bit unique is a combination of 3 or 4 things. That we are of a scale and economic development. So 75, 80 million people with a per capita income of $4,000 or $5,000 US, about 3 lakhs plus. Which means there's enough of an economic ecosystem to support independent or non-bootlicking media without having to worry about whether the government pays the bills or not. And there's enough education in the public and enough discernment in the public, and there's enough penetration of the internet. So all these have to be true. You have, one of the highest penetrations of internet, 75%. One of the highest levels of education, average education is a +2 graduate. You have enough money to be made promoting movies and businesses and running other kinds of investigative journalism or very fan-following internet channels, YouTube channels. And therefore, there are ancillary streams of revenue that can sustain you even were you to not get the government's money. And the government, of course, has both the carrot and the stick, at least in theory. Large source of advertising as a carrot, and all kinds of, trouble as a stick. But I must say, with my former MLA colleague here, Mr. Thiagarajan, that even the previous regime, for all the other criticisms I'd make of it, the former Chief Minister was completely hands off the press. He never used intimidation, he never used threats, just like we don't do now. And so in some ways, the speaker before me was talking about the culture of Tamil Nadu. I think this is one of the things we take great pride in. It wasn't always the case, but now both the last few years under the previous regime and this year, these years in our regime, we are happy to see a public debate. We believe in the exchange of ideas. We believe that the more voices are heard, the more likely our eventual decision will be an informed one. That is what democracy requires, that everybody's voice is heard. And so in that sense, though I am not that aware of your efforts over the last year, I know some of the people who work here from previous lives, careers. So I'm assuming you've made a lot of traction. I know some of my videos on your YouTube page have had 3, 4, 5 lakh views, so clearly there's a following. I think there are multiple ways you can grow from here, but I assure you that we are Democrats at heart. It's not just in our mouth. So we are happy to have independent media, independent thinking, independent assessment, legitimate criticism. Of course, we are very extreme in some other way. We will not tolerate the kind of hate-mongering and rumor-mongering and rabble-rousing that goes on in some parts of the country. So we've brought in my budget, I've announced a new kind of media cell in the police. So if it is outright, blatantly false propaganda being pushed for the sake of creating divisions in society, then we will show no mercy. We will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, no matter what certain high court judges of certain persuasion may decide to do after the case is brought, but we will bring the case every single time. So I think hopefully I'm clear on both sides, and I thank you once again for this last minute invitation. I know the event is scheduled to end soon, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I wish you continued success and a good night. Thank you.
Want to be the next IAS topper? Join Shankar IAS Academy.